The celebratory shouts froze midair as I placed the official tax filings beneath the reunion's family photo album. "Our new home is perfect, no worries," my brother had just announced, his voice dripping with triumph. "Island living is ours." My sister-in-law's smile vanished when she saw my eyes. "I'm Jessica Riley, a 35-year-old artist who believed in the power of family and legacy." On this sweltering August afternoon, at the annual Riley family reunion, my brother Tom, with his usual theatrical flair, had just raised a glass, his wife Sarah beaming beside him. He spoke of new beginnings, of a dream realized on a sun-drenched island, and how their antique shop, a supposed cornerstone of our heritage, was now a happy memory. They were, he declared, finally free. The words hit me like a physical blow. Free from what? Free from the mountain of debt I had shouldered for years. Free from the promises of repayment that evaporated into thin air. My grip tightened on the thick envelope in my hand. Their carefree laughter, the clinking of glasses, the hum of excited chatter, all seemed to intensify around me, mocking my quiet desperation. Their smiles were radiant, oblivious to the storm about to break. And as I slowly, deliberately, laid the meticulously organized folder of documents on the table, directly beneath a faded photograph of our grandparents standing proudly in front of that very antique shop, I knew their perfect island dream was about to crash. If you're enjoying this story already, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Hit like and subscribe to hear what happened later. For as long as I can remember, the antique shop, Timeless Treasures, wasn't just a business. It was the heart of our family. My grandparents, Arthur and Elsie Riley, had built it from nothing, brick by painstaking brick, a dusty collection of forgotten heirlooms blossoming into a beloved local institution. Their worn hands and unyielding dedication had filled its shelves with stories, its air with the scent of aged wood and forgotten perfumes. My parents, John and Alina Riley, had continued the tradition, pouring their lives into its quirky charm and unique finds, a quiet testament to their own enduring love story. But when they finally decided, in their late 60s, to retire to the perpetual sunshine of Arizona, the burden of legacy, or rather, the illusion of it, fell squarely on my elder brother, Tom. Tom, with his booming laugh and easy charm, was a natural salesman, a master storyteller who could spin a narrative around a chipped teacup and make it sound like a relic of untold importance. He could walk into a room and instantly command attention, his charisma undeniable. But beneath the dazzling veneer, he was a disastrous businessman. His ideas were grand, his plans sprawling, but his follow-through was non-existent, and his grasp of finances was, to put it mildly, tenuous. His wife, Sarah, was equally charming but equally lacking in financial acumen. She had an eye for aesthetics, for staging the shop's displays with artistic flair, but her spending habits were impulsive, mirroring Tom's grandiose visions without the grounding of reality. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one, the artist, the pragmatist. After graduating from the Rhode Island School of Design with a fine arts degree and establishing myself as a successful independent artist specializing in large-scale abstract paintings, my income provided a comfortable, if not extravagant, life in my modest but light-filled apartment studio. But that comfort was soon to be chipped away, piece by painstaking piece, by the insidious demands of family legacy. It started subtly. A casual call from Tom, his voice laced with an exaggerated urgency, about a temporary cash flow issue that needed a small loan to keep the lights on during a slow season. "Just a few thousand, Jess," he'd promised, his voice dripping with practiced sincerity. "We'll pay you back as soon as that big estate sale closes next month. This one's a gold mine, seriously." The estate sale, predictably, never seemed to close, or if it did, the profits mysteriously vanished into the ether, swallowed by phantom expenses. Then came the unexpected repairs. A leaky roof that turned into a full-scale structural issue, a faulty furnace that needed immediate replacement in the dead of winter, a new, top-of-the-line security system that cost a fortune but never quite seemed to deter the phantom break-ins, he claimed. Each request came with a meticulously crafted sob story, a desperate plea to preserve Grandma Elsie's dream, a poignant reminder of our shared heritage, of the family's honor resting on my shoulders. "This shop," he'd often say, his voice thick with carefully modulated emotion, "it's not just for us, Jess. It's for the whole family, for generations to come. It's a legacy. My parents, basking in their peaceful desert retirement, would echo these sentiments during our weekly phone calls, subtly pressuring me. "They're doing such a good job keeping the shop alive, dear." My mother would sigh dramatically. "It's such a heavy burden for them, keeping Grandma's dream alive." And so, like clockwork, I'd open my bank account, feeling a familiar pang of anxiety, and send another chunk of my hard-earned savings, driven by a misguided sense of obligation and a deep-seated desire to protect something I genuinely believed was precious. I genuinely loved that dusty old shop, its scent of old books and polish, the sense of history that permeated its every corner. It truly felt like a piece of my soul was tied to its survival. I learned to live on less, to postpone my own dreams of a bigger, standalone studio space or an international art exhibition in Europe. My savings account, once a source of security and pride, slowly dwindled, becoming a revolving door for Tom and Sarah's unending stream of emergencies. I convinced myself it was an investment, a necessary sacrifice, that one day the shop would truly thrive, and my contributions would be recognized as the bedrock of its success. I even found myself spending countless late nights researching business strategies, poring over marketing ideas, reading books on antique market trends, anything that could help them. I'd send them detailed articles, suggest new inventory sourcing methods, offer to help with creating a robust online sales platform. My suggestions, however, were often met with polite dismissals or vague promises to look into it later. "Oh, Jess, you and your spreadsheets." Tom would laugh, waving a dismissive hand. "We're more about the feel, the vibe, the art of the deal." They preferred to maintain their chaotic, reactive approach, always teetering on the brink of disaster, always needing another infusion of cash from me. It was a pattern that, looking back, was disturbingly consistent. A carefully orchestrated dance of manufactured desperation and my reluctant rescue. I began keeping a meticulous ledger, initially a simple spreadsheet to track my loans. But it soon grew, recording not just the monetary amounts, but the specific dates, the exact reasons given for each request, and the ever-present, never-fulfilled promises of repayment. It became my quiet rebellion, a stark, undeniable record of their growing dependency and my burgeoning resentment. The emotional toll was immense. The constant anxiety of their next call, the dread of another invented crisis, became a suffocating companion. Each ring of my phone would send a jolt of apprehension through me. Yet I couldn't bring myself to say no. The fear of being seen as unsupportive, of letting down the family, of being the one who let Grandma Elsie's dream die, was a powerful, crippling motivator. I saw the shop as a fragile bird, and I, the only one willing to provide the golden cage to keep it flying. What I failed to see, however, was that the bird wasn't dying. It was simply being starved by those who claimed to care for it most, while they feasted on the gold I provided. My ledger, growing thicker with each passing month, was no longer just a record of money, but a chronicle of my diminishing self-worth, a quiet testament to their relentless exploitation. The temporary cash flow issues soon mutated into an unending deluge of demands, each more audacious, more urgent than the last. At 29, after securing a major commission from a prominent art gallery that should have finally allowed me to purchase that small art studio space I'd been dreaming of for years, Tom called. His voice was strained, laced with a new level of panic. "Jess, this is it. The bank's called the loan. Timeless Treasures is facing imminent foreclosure. We need $50,000 in the next week, or it's over." "Gone," he wailed, his voice cracking with what sounded like genuine despair. Sarah, miraculously on speakerphone, added her own tearful plea. "Grandma Elsie would be heartbroken, Jess. Please, don't let her legacy die. We've put everything into this." My heart, still irrationally tethered to the sentimental value of the shop, twisted in knots. The thought of Grandma Elsie's faded photo, her gentle smile, spurred me to act. I drained my studio fund, every penny I had painstakingly saved and invested, and wired it to them, watching the balance in my account plummet to a terrifying low. A few weeks later, my parents, oblivious to my sacrifice, sent me photos of their newly renovated kitchen in Arizona, a gleaming testament to granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. "Finally able to do it, darling," my mother chirped over the phone. Thanks to Tom and Sarah, the shop's really found its feet again, so proud of them. The cognitive dissonance was jarring, a painful punch to the gut. They were celebrating renovations paid for by my financial depletion. The excuses for non-payment became increasingly flimsy, bordering on absurd. "The market's slow, Jess," Tom would sigh dramatically during our strained phone calls. "People just aren't buying antiques like they used to. It's a dying art." Yet, on their social media, I'd see a constant stream of photos of lavish family vacations, ski trips to Aspen, beach getaways to Cancun, even a private yacht charter in the Caribbean. Each photo was accompanied by nauseatingly cheerful captions like, "So grateful for this much-needed break from the grind," or "Family time is priceless, making memories." My own life, meanwhile, had become a study in forced austerity. I ate instant ramen for dinner more often than I cared to admit, wore clothes until they literally disintegrated at the seams, and worked relentlessly, pulling all-nighters to meet my art deadlines, driven by the desperate need to replenish my perpetually depleted savings and to keep the supposed family legacy alive. My dreams of expanding my art business, of investing in new, expensive equipment to push my artistic boundaries, of taking a much-needed sabbatical to fuel my creativity and explore new techniques, were all put on indefinite hold. My art, once a boundless joy, began to feel like just another means to an end. At 31, my brother approached me with yet another groundbreaking idea, bubbling with unbridled, almost manic enthusiasm. "Jess, this is it. The game changer. We need to expand, a second location, a high-end boutique antique gallery in the upscale part of town. It'll be huge, a magnet for the serious collectors." He presented a glossy, professionally designed business plan, slick with optimistic projections and corporate buzzwords. It was all flash and no substance, filled with figures that seemed plucked from thin air. He needed $75,000 for the down payment and initial inventory to secure this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. "This isn't just for us, Jess," he insisted, his eyes wide and earnest. "It's for the future of the Riley name in antiques. Think of the inheritance, think of the prestige for generations to come." Sarah chimed in, her voice sweet as honey. "It's a sure thing, Jess. A guaranteed return on your investment. You'll be set." Against every fiber of my being, against my better judgment, I found myself swayed by the desperate, flickering hope of finally seeing a return on my investment, of the antique shop actually becoming a profitable venture, and a genuine, albeit dwindling, belief in the potential of a well-run business. I took out a significant second mortgage loan against my own modest apartment, incurring crippling interest rates that felt like a tightening noose around my neck. I became their silent, ever-suffering partner, providing capital without any real say in operations, without any voice in the decision-making process. I was merely a financial pipeline. The second shop predictably hemorrhaged money even faster than the first. It was a bottomless pit. Tom and Sarah, despite my constant pleas for transparency, for actual financial updates, for any semblance of a budget, continued their chaotic spending habits. They hired an outrageously expensive interior designer who transformed the space into something unrecognizable, bought a new, oversized, custom-wrapped delivery van that cost a fortune, and spent fortunes on exclusive, antique sourcing trips that looked suspiciously like luxury shopping sprees and five-star vacations in Europe. My financial ledger, now overflowing with hundreds of entries, grew thicker, showing a staggering, undeniable pattern of gross mismanagement and blatant personal enrichment at my expense. I started receiving increasingly frantic calls from suppliers, looking for unpaid invoices that Tom had repeatedly assured me were settled months ago. The grim reality was sinking in, cold and hard. The shop wasn't just a sinking ship. It was a carefully disguised black hole, endlessly consuming my resources while Tom and Sarah used its struggles as a convenient, heartbreakingly effective excuse for their extravagant lifestyle. My anxiety reached new, unbearable heights, affecting my sleep, my focus, and even my artistic output, turning my creative process into a painful chore. The lines between family and exploitation had blurred beyond all recognition, morphing into a grotesque, unrecognizable caricature of love. The grand opening of the new boutique antique gallery was a spectacle of curated elegance and underlying chaos. White wine flowed freely, caterers circulated with trays of artisanal cheeses, and soft jazz drifted from hidden speakers. Tom, resplendent in a tailored Italian suit that certainly wasn't paid for by meager shop profits, beamed as he greeted local dignitaries, art collectors, and potential investors. Sarah, in a designer dress that shimmered with every movement, flitted among the crowd, dispensing charm and champagne with equal ease. I stood in a corner, an invisible patron, observing the elaborate charade with a growing sense of detachment, my heart a leaden weight in my chest. Every opulent detail, from the imported marble counter to the antique chandeliers that sparkled like stolen diamonds, felt like a direct assault on my own dwindling bank account, a cruel mockery of my sacrifices. I overheard Tom, his voice smooth and confident, regaling a prominent art dealer with tales of his visionary leadership. How he had single-handedly rescued the family business from the brink of collapse, transforming it into this exquisite gallery. It was a masterful performance, a tapestry of intricate lies woven with effortless grace, and it made my stomach churn. 2 months later, the calls started coming in. Not from Tom or Sarah, who were conveniently unreachable, but from creditors. Frantic calls about unpaid bills for the new shop's utilities, overdue invoices from furious antique dealers. Even a stern notice from the city about a serious zoning violation regarding the building's facade that Tom had promised me he had handled months ago. Each call was a new, searing stab of betrayal, a fresh layer of humiliation. When I finally managed to track down Tom, he feigned shock, blaming administrative oversight and clerical errors, promising to look into it immediately. Sarah, meanwhile, had posted a series of idyllic photos of their recent weekend getaway to Napa Valley, captioned, "Celebrating New Beginnings." So much hard work paying off. The audacity was breathtaking, a slap in the face. My own hard work was quite literally paying for their new beginnings, their lavish celebrations. My savings were completely depleted. The second mortgage loan against my apartment was eating away at my future, a relentless beast of interest payments. I was living paycheck to paycheck, ironically, to support my supposedly successful brother's increasingly failing enterprises. The emotional exhaustion was profound, a constant, dull ache that seeped into every aspect of my life. I began to question everything: my judgment, my unwavering loyalty, my very identity. Was I a naive fool, hopelessly bound by familial duty, or was I unwittingly enabling a deeper, more insidious form of familial abuse? My conversations with my parents, when I dared to hint at my struggles, offered no solace. They continued to praise Tom and Sarah, often suggesting I was too hard on them, that business was tough, and that family should always stick together. They seemed willfully blind to the clear financial drain on me, always pivoting back to the romantic, almost mythical, notion of the family legacy. The turning point came with brutal clarity when I received a final, terrifying notice from the bank regarding the second mortgage loan I had taken out for Tom's second shop. It was critically overdue, and my beloved apartment, my sanctuary, my only real asset, was now officially at risk of foreclosure. Panic, cold and sharp, finally pierced through the dense fog of my denial. I sat down at my kitchen table, surrounded by my burgeoning financial ledger, now a monstrously thick binder containing hundreds of entries, meticulously detailing every penny, every lie, every broken promise. I added up the figures, the total sum a shocking, almost unbelievable testament to their relentless exploitation, over $400,000. It wasn't just my savings. It was my entire future, my security, my peace of mind, all vanished. And for what? For their fleeting moments of luxury, for a business they clearly didn't care about beyond its ability to fund their lifestyle, for a legacy they were actively destroying. The tears finally came, hot and furious, not just for the colossal sum of money, but for the profound, agonizing betrayal of trust, the deliberate, cynical manipulation disguised as familial love. It was then, amidst the wreckage of my financial and emotional landscape, that a cold, steely resolve began to form, hardening my resolve like tempered steel. I wasn't just going to track their deceit, I was going to expose it. My focus shifted from the futile task of saving the shop to the paramount necessity of saving myself. The discovery of my near financial ruin ignited a spark of cold fury within me, a fire I had long suppressed. I was no longer the naive sister, the silent financier, the ever-giving ATM. I was an artist, and I would treat this betrayal as my most complex, most painful project yet. My first crucial step was to seek professional help, not just for legal advice, but for my own emotional well-being, which had been severely eroded over the years. I found Dr. Evelyn Hayes, a therapist specializing in family dynamics and the insidious effects of emotional and financial abuse. Her gentle, yet incredibly firm, questioning helped me unravel years of deeply ingrained guilt, self-blame, and a crippling sense of obligation. Jessica, she explained, her voice calm and empathetic, your family has systematically exploited your generosity, treating you as an endless, renewable resource. This isn't love. It's a deeply transactional relationship built entirely on manipulation and entitlement. You are the victim here, not the enabler. Her words, stark and undeniably true, were a profound revelation. They validated my deepest, unspoken fears, and more importantly, gave me explicit permission to feel the righteous anger I had long suppressed, buried under layers of duty and loyalty. Next, I sought out a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but one with a formidable reputation for handling complex financial fraud and intricate business disputes. Mr. Arthur Jenkins, a formidable figure known for his meticulous preparation, his sharp legal mind, and his unyielding pursuit of justice. I walked into his imposing office, carrying my overflowing ledger, now a thick, heavy binder containing meticulously organized bank statements, wire transfer confirmations, damning text messages, incriminating emails, and even covert recordings of conversations where Tom and Sarah, in their unguarded moments, made their false promises and revealed their true intentions. Mr. Jenkins listened intently, his expression unreadable, occasionally nodding his head slowly, a silent acknowledgement of the mounting evidence. When I finished my painful recitation of years of exploitation, he simply leaned forward, his gaze direct and piercing. "Miss Riley," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion, "this is a clear and textbook case of fraudulent misrepresentation, potentially even embezzlement. Based on the evidence you've painstakingly gathered, we have a very strong case for civil recovery, and depending on the additional findings, possibly criminal charges." The word criminal echoed in the quiet, somber office, a chilling confirmation of the sheer gravity of their actions, a stark delineation between their charming facade and their illicit reality. Under Mr. Jenkins's astute guidance, I hired a private investigator. Not to find out if Tom and Sarah were lying, I already knew that with soul-crushing certainty, but to gather irrefutable, legally admissible evidence that would stand up in court. The investigator, a no-nonsense former police detective named Frank, with a gruff demeanor and an uncanny knack for uncovering secrets, took my binder and disappeared for weeks. When he returned, he laid out a web of deception far more intricate and depraved than I had ever imagined. He discovered that the unexpected repairs to the first shop, for which I had so generously provided $50,000, had been vastly inflated, with a significant portion of my money secretly diverted to a shell company in Delaware, discreetly owned by Sarah's obscure cousin. The second location, loan, the $75,000 I had taken out against my own apartment, was a calculated front for a sophisticated money laundering scheme involving a shadowy online antique auction site where Tom was secretly selling inventory at wildly inflated prices, meticulously pocketing the difference while claiming losses. Most damningly, Frank found irrefutable evidence of a substantial, undisclosed offshore bank account in a notoriously opaque tax haven, where Tom and Sarah had been systematically funneling the actual profits from their thriving antique sales, while simultaneously claiming the business was failing and shamelessly begging for my loans. The revelations were sickening, a nauseating cocktail of rage and despair. The very legacy I had tirelessly worked to preserve, the romantic notion of timeless treasures, was merely a thinly veiled smokescreen for their elaborate scam, a front for their avarice. The quaint charm, the sentimental value, the very essence of Grandma Elsie's dream was tainted beyond recognition. My parents, unknowingly, had been entirely complicit in enabling this deception by constantly pressuring me to support Tom and Sarah, to do my part for the family. The anger I felt was no longer a hot, impulsive rage that would soon burn itself out, but a cold, steely, calculated determination. I would not just reclaim my money, I would dismantle their carefully constructed facade, piece by painful, undeniable piece. The upcoming annual Riley family reunion, an event steeped in tradition and false camaraderie, presented the perfect, unavoidable stage for my carefully planned retribution. I would bring not gifts, but truth. The approach of the annual Riley family reunion felt less like a joyful gathering and more like a looming battle, a strategic engagement. The family group chat buzzed with an almost frantic excitement about potluck assignments, reunion games, and trivial updates on distant relatives. Tom and Sarah were particularly vocal, their messages radiating an irritatingly smug contentment, sharing enthusiastic posts about their exciting new chapter and their dream home on the horizon. They even posted a cryptic message about tying up loose ends and finally being free, which, to my ears, sounded like a chilling, almost taunting, preview of their grand escape, their unburdened future built on my ruin. Each photo of their annoyingly smiling faces, each casual mention of their impending move to a remote, sun-drenched island, fueled my resolve, hardening my heart against any lingering sentimentality. They were clearly reveling in their ill-gotten gains, completely oblivious, or perhaps arrogantly indifferent, to the meticulously planned reckoning that awaited them. My preparations were meticulous, almost ritualistic. Mr. Jenkins had advised me to keep my plans completely under wraps, even from my unsuspecting parents, until the designated, climactic moment. The element of surprise, he stressed, would be absolutely crucial to the success of my plan. I spent countless late nights with my lawyer and the private investigator, reviewing every single document, every single piece of evidence, rehearsing every possible scenario, every anticipated reaction. The official tax filings that would become my weapon were not just mere pieces of paper. They were a culmination of years of quiet suffering, a physical manifestation of their insidious betrayal, a tangible representation of every broken promise. It wasn't just the mundane official tax documents of the business, but supplemental filings painstakingly compiled by the private investigator, showing the full extent of the vast, unreported income, the fraudulent deductions, and the shadowy offshore accounts. This was not a bluff. This was a meticulously constructed, legally airtight ambush. I consciously detached myself from the immense emotional weight of the upcoming confrontation. Dr. Hayes had taught me to visualize it as a professional performance, a necessary surgical procedure to excise a deeply toxic growth from my life. I would be the surgeon, precise and unflinching, operating with detached professionalism. I even considered what I would wear, settling on a simple, yet elegant navy blue dress that conveyed strength and composure, not theatrics. No dramatic gestures, no emotional outbursts, just quiet, undeniable authority. My gifts for the reunion were symbolic, almost ironic. For my parents, a carefully curated photo album filled with pictures of genuine family moments from before the financial strain, a bittersweet reminder of the innocent bond we once shared. For Tom and Sarah, nothing but polite, almost chillingly detached greetings. They didn't deserve a gesture of goodwill, only the cold, unvarnished truth. The day before the reunion, Tom called me, his voice annoyingly cheerful, completely oblivious to the impending storm. "Hey, Jess, just wanted to make absolutely sure you're bringing your famous potato salad. It's everyone's favorite, you know. And hey, quick favor, could you possibly bring an extra case of that fancy sparkling cider? Our budget's a little tight with the move and all, gotta watch every penny, you know." The sheer gall was astounding, almost comical. Even now, on the precipice of their grand unveiling, they were still squeezing me for minor expenses, still taking. "Sure, Tom," I replied, my voice calm, almost serene, betraying nothing of the turmoil within. "I'll bring it, and I have something special to share with everyone too, something for the family album." He chuckled, completely missing the loaded double meaning. "Great. See you tomorrow." That night, I carefully placed the thick, unassuming manila envelope, deceptively labeled with neat handwriting, "Riley Family Legacy, a true account," into my oversized tote bag. Inside were the official tax filings, accompanied by a detailed, damning summary drafted by Mr. Jenkins, outlining every single fraudulent transaction, every hidden asset, and the immediate, severe legal ramifications. The storm was ready to break. The calm before it was almost unbearable. The air at the annual Riley family reunion was thick with the scent of barbecue, sunscreen, and the pervasive, almost suffocating, false cheer typical of large family gatherings. Children shrieked with laughter as they chased each other across the manicured lawn. Cousins gossiped in hushed tones near the picnic tables, and aunts exchanged recipes. Tom and Sarah, strategically positioned near the main food table, held court, their smiles wide, almost performative, and their eyes bright with an almost manic anticipation of their grand announcement. They were dressed in crisp, new linen clothes that spoke of expensive boutiques and effortless living, radiating an aura of carefree success that grated on every nerve in my body. My parents, looking proud and almost tearful with joy, hovered nearby, occasionally patting Tom on the back, their faces beaming with blind adoration. I arrived precisely on time, carrying the requested potato salad in a large Tupperware container and the case of sparkling cider, a picture of unassuming, almost docile cooperation. Tom greeted me with a hearty backslap that felt like a physical affront. "Jess, so glad you could make it. And thanks for the cider, you're a lifesaver as always." Sarah offered a quick, superficial hug, her cheek brushing mine in a fleeting, almost dismissive gesture. "So good to see you, darling. Are you excited for our big news?" I kept my responses brief, my demeanor cool and composed, betraying nothing of the churning tempest within. I mingled, exchanging polite pleasantries with various family members, my gaze occasionally drifting towards the aged, leather-bound family photo album placed prominently on the main dessert table. It was the perfect, most symbolic spot, the physical embodiment of the legacy they claimed to uphold. As the afternoon wore on and the last of the barbecue was devoured, the conversation slowly, inevitably, turned to Tom and Sarah. My mother, Alina, her face flushed with pride, clinked a spoon against a glass, calling for silence. Everyone, we have some very exciting family news to share." Tom, seizing the moment with practiced theatricality, cleared his throat and stood tall, silencing the excited chatter. Sarah clasped her hands together, eyes sparkling with an almost mischievous glee. "As many of you know," Tom began, his voice resonating with an almost professional confidence, swelling with self-importance, "Sarah and I have been working tirelessly on timeless treasures for years, upholding Grandma Elsie's incredible legacy." A collective murmur of agreement, of nostalgic sighs, rippled through the gathered relatives. "It's been quite a journey," Sarah added, her voice trembling ever so slightly, as if recalling immense hardship and insurmountable obstacles, filled with challenges and sacrifices you wouldn't believe. Then came the grand, long-awaited announcement. Tom puffed out his chest, a triumphant glint in his eyes. "But," he declared, his voice rising, resonating with a triumphant flourish, "we've finally reached a point where we can embark on a truly exhilarating new chapter. We've successfully sold the antique shop. A truly incredible deal, far beyond our wildest dreams, and with the substantial proceeds, we've purchased our absolute dream home on a remote, unbelievably beautiful island in the Caribbean. We're moving next month?" A wave of excited gasps, of astonished murmurs, and then a cascade of congratulatory shouts erupted, filling the air with a deafening roar. My parents rushed forward to embrace them, tears glistening in my mother's eyes, her face alight with unadulterated joy. "Oh, Tom, Sarah, that's absolutely wonderful. All your hard work has paid off, dear." My brother soaked in the fervent applause, basking in the blinding spotlight of his perceived triumph, a modern-day hero in the eyes of his unsuspecting family. "It's a bittersweet farewell to the shop, of course," he added, with a theatrical sigh that fooled no one, "but it's time for new horizons. No more worries, just endless island living." It was then, in the very peak of their self-congratulatory glow, as they absorbed the adulation of their family, that I made my move. The celebratory shouts still rang hollow in the air, a discordant symphony to my ears, as I walked calmly, deliberately, towards the dessert table. With a slow, almost ceremonial gesture, my hand steady as a surgeon's, I placed the thick, unassuming manila envelope directly beneath the aged family photo album, right next to the empty space where their new home, photos, would undoubtedly one day reside, a testament to their fabricated prosperity. It wasn't a casual toss, it was a precise, impactful placement, silent yet unmistakably significant. Tom, mid-sentence, mid-triumphant grin, saw me. Sarah, her face still flushed with triumph, paused mid-hug with my mother, her head turning slowly. Their smiles, so radiant and victorious moments before, began to falter, then froze completely, like fragile glass caught in a sudden frost. The celebratory shouts and cheerful chatter around us seemed to instantly mute, replaced by an eerie, growing silence as people noticed the sudden, dramatic shift in atmosphere, sensing the invisible tension crackling in the air. My brother's eyes narrowed, questioning, his brow furrowing in confusion. My sister-in-law's face drained of color, turning a ghastly shade of white, her lips parting slightly in an almost imperceptible gasp. "What is that, Jess?" Tom finally asked, his voice now flat, devoid of its earlier bravado, his usual charming timbre replaced by a brittle edge of fear. I looked directly into his eyes, then Sarah's, my gaze unwavering, a silent promise of the storm to come. "This," I stated, my voice quiet, but cutting through the sudden, fragile quiet like a sharpened blade, "is the true account of the Riley family legacy." The air crackled with unspoken tension, heavy with the weight of impending revelation. The silence that followed my declaration was deafening. A thick, suffocating blanket that pressed down on everyone present, punctuated only by the distant chirping of unseen crickets and the nervous, almost guttural cough of a bewildered uncle. Tom and Sarah stood frozen, staring at the envelope, then at me, their faces a horrifying canvas of confusion, disbelief, and dawning dread. My parents, sensing the profound shift in the atmosphere, their earlier joy dissolving into uneasy apprehension, cautiously approached, their eyes wide with unspoken questions. "Jessica, what is this all about?" my mother asked, her voice hushed, laced with a palpable, fragile apprehension. "Just a small correction," I replied, my gaze fixed on Tom and Sarah, my voice unwavering, to Tom's earlier announcement. He mentioned proceeds from the shop sale. "This folder contains the actual financial picture of timeless treasures for the past 5 years. With that, I calmly, deliberately opened the unassuming manila envelope, revealing the thick, incriminating stack of documents within. The top sheet, a meticulously detailed summary drafted by Mr. Jenkins, was clearly visible, emblazoned with stark, bold words. "Forensic Accounting Report, Unreported Income and Fraudulent Expenditures, Timeless Treasures, 2018 to 2023. "You wouldn't dare," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible, her face pale as parchment, her eyes darting nervously towards the curious, increasingly concerned faces of our relatives. "Dare what, Sarah?" I countered, my voice dangerously calm, a stark contrast to the hurricane brewing within me. "Present the truth about how you managed our grandparents' legacy." I pulled out the first damning document, the official tax filings for timeless treasures for the past 5 years, showing consistent, almost laughably meager profits, year after year, barely enough to cover operating costs. Then, with a flourish, I overlaid it with a comprehensive supplemental report compiled by my private investigator, Frank. "These," I announced, holding up the 2 documents for all to see, "are the official tax filings, showing minimal profits, Tom. And this," I held up the investigator's detailed spreadsheet, its columns filled with damning figures, "is a meticulous breakdown of the actual income, including substantial, undocumented cash sales that never saw the light of day on your official books. Oh, and here," I pulled out a series of printouts of complex bank statements, accompanied by irrefutable wire transfer confirmations, "are direct transfers from your business account to an undisclosed offshore account in the Cayman Islands, registered under a shell corporation." Funny that wasn't mentioned in your hard work and sacrifice speech, was it, Tom? Tom's eyes darted frantically, wild with panic, searching for an escape route, a hole to crawl into, anywhere but this public inquisition. He stammered, his usual smooth delivery completely gone. "This is absurd. You've gone completely crazy, Jess. These are forgeries." "Am I?" I challenged, my voice rising slightly, cutting through his sputtering protests, then slowly turned my gaze to the stunned, bewildered faces of our assembled family members, who had now gathered closely, their earlier celebratory chatter completely vanished. "Do you know that Tom and Sarah consistently claimed the shop was on the brink of foreclosure, year after agonizing year? Do Do you know that for 5 consecutive years, I personally funneled over $400,000 of my own hard-earned money, my life savings, into timeless treasures to save it? A collective gasp, a ripple of shock, spread through the crowd. My parents looked utterly stunned, their faces reflecting a horrifying blend of disbelief, betrayal, and growing horror. $400,000, my father muttered, his jaw slack with shock, his eyes fixed on the numbers. Yes, Dad, I confirmed, my voice thick with suppressed emotion. Money I saved for my own future, my own art studio, my own financial security. All given under the guise of protecting Grandma Elsie's legacy. I then laid out the undeniable evidence of their personal extravagance, their lavish lifestyle funded by my sacrifices. Remember those unexpected repairs to the first shop, Tom? The $50,000 I wired you to fix that supposedly collapsing roof. Here are the invoices from the shell company, owned by Sarah's cousin, showing the actual repairs cost a mere $10,000. The remaining $40,000, a direct, immediate transfer to your personal account, a personal windfall disguised as a business necessity. I could see relatives exchanging knowing glances. And the second location loan, Sarah? I continued, holding up the printouts of bank statements and investment portfolios. The $75,000 I took out as a second mortgage against my own modest apartment. Here's the forensic report detailing how a significant portion of that money was not used for boutique antiques, but instead used to fund a high-stakes, increasingly reckless online gambling habit Tom developed, along with Sarah's extravagant designer shopping sprees. I held up incriminating photos of Tom at exclusive casinos, juxtaposed with screenshots of his burgeoning online gambling accounts. Sarah's face was a mask of pure, unadulterated fury, a grotesque caricature of her earlier charm. "You had us investigated. This is an invasion of privacy. This is stalking," she shrieked, her voice cracking with indignation. "No, Sarah," I calmly corrected her, my voice unwavering. "This is due diligence. Something you clearly never applied to your so-called business. Something I should have done years ago, before I lost everything." Then came the final, devastating blow, designed to hit them where it truly hurt. Their carefully constructed image of success. "And your dream home on the island," I continued, pulling out vivid images of a luxurious, sprawling villa nestled on a pristine beach, along with detailed records of a private, jet charter and luxury resort bookings. Purchased, according to these irrefutable documents from my private investigator, not with the meager proceeds from the shop's sale, which were nominal at best, but with funds systematically funneled from that offshore account, money you meticulously siphoned from the shop over years, while you shamelessly begged me for loans and played the victims of a dying antique market. I then presented a stark, official legal letter from Mr. Jenkins, prominently displaying his law firm's letterhead. It outlined the immediate civil lawsuit for financial recovery, detailing the fraudulent misrepresentation, the breach of fiduciary duty, and explicitly mentioning the very real possibility of criminal charges for tax evasion, embezzlement, and conspiracy to defraud. Tom stumbled backward, grasping desperately for a nearby patio chair, his legs suddenly like jelly. Sarah stood frozen, rigid, her eyes wide with unadulterated terror, her mouth agape. "You're ruining everything," she shrieked, a desperate, guttural sound escaping her throat. "No, Sarah," I countered, my voice unwavering, laced with a cold, righteous anger that had been brewing for years. "You ruined everything. You destroyed a family legacy, you exploited my love and trust, and you built your island dream on my financial ruin. This isn't revenge, it's justice." The family gathering, once a picture of joyous celebration, had transformed irrevocably into an impromptu courtroom, every eye fixed on the unfolding drama. The immediate aftermath of the reunion was a shocking cacophony of stunned whispers, angry accusations, and frantic, desperate phone calls. My parents, John and Alina, initially in a state of utter disbelief, were forced to confront the harsh, undeniable reality presented in the true account folder. My mother, Alina, her face stained with tears, collapsed into a lawn chair, sobbing uncontrollably. She was heartbroken not just by her son's profound deceit, but by her own unwitting complicity in my systematic exploitation, her blind faith in Tom now shattered. My father, John, a quiet man who rarely showed emotion, turned a sickly shade of gray as he silently read through the tax filings and absorbed the undeniable evidence of fraud. They confessed, their voices raw with pain, that they had absolutely no idea of the true scale of Tom's financial mismanagement or the insidious depths of his and Sarah's deceit. They had trusted him implicitly, blindly, convinced by the sentimental notion of family keeping the legacy alive. Tom and Sarah, their island dream irrevocably shattered, faced immediate and severe consequences. Mr. Jenkins, true to his word, wasted no time. Within days, civil lawsuits for the recovery of my funds were officially filed, and the overwhelming evidence of tax evasion, embezzlement, and other fraudulent activities was immediately forwarded to the appropriate state and federal authorities. The antique shop, Timeless Treasures, once a symbol of our family's heritage, was immediately seized by the courts, and its remaining assets were frozen. The incredible deal they had orchestrated for its sale dissolved under intense legal scrutiny, revealing a complex web of shell corporations and shadowy transactions designed to hide their illicit gains. Their offshore accounts, once their secret financial haven, were identified and eventually frozen as well, though the process was long and incredibly complex. They lost everything. Their new dream home on the island was never acquired. The significant funds they had funneled towards it tied up indefinitely in legal battles, and eventually ceased to repay me and other numerous, less fortunate creditors. The wider family, initially in a state of stunned shock, eventually rallied around my parents, offering support and expressing their deep disappointment. But they largely and definitively ostracized Tom and Sarah. Their reputation within the community, once built on charming smiles and purported antique expertise, was irrevocably ruined, replaced by a dark cloud of scandal and shame. For me, Jessica Riley, the path to healing was arduous, fraught with emotional landmines, but ultimately profoundly liberating. Dr. Hayes continued to guide me through the complex, often painful emotional landscape of betrayal, grief, and recovery. She helped me unpack years of ingrained guilt and self-blame. I learned to forgive myself for my initial naivete, to recognize that my generosity had been systematically exploited, not foolishly given. Slowly but surely, I began to rebuild my savings, using the hard-won, partially reclaimed funds from the lawsuit and the continued, newfound success of my own art business. My art flourished, imbued with a newfound depth, resilience, and raw emotional power born directly from the crucible of adversity. I finally bought my dream studio, a bright, spacious loft filled with natural light, a physical testament to my independence, my resilience, and my complete financial recovery. The crushing weight of family obligation, which had suffocated me for so long, lifted, replaced by a liberating sense of autonomy. My relationship with my parents was fractured, deeply scarred, but not entirely irreparable. They underwent their own period of intense grief and painful reckoning, slowly coming to terms with the horrifying extent of their son's lies and their own unwitting failure to see my suffering. We eventually entered family therapy, a slow and incredibly painful process of rebuilding trust, reestablishing shattered bonds, and most importantly, establishing healthy, firm boundaries that had been absent for far too long. They finally understood that legacy wasn't about a physical antique shop or inherited wealth, but about integrity, honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care for one another. Tom and Sarah eventually faced criminal charges for tax evasion and grand larceny. I didn't take joy in their public downfall or their eventual sentencing, but I felt a profound, undeniable sense of justice. It was the karmic retribution, the inevitable consequence for years of systematic exploitation, deceit, and profound betrayal. The entire excruciating experience taught me an invaluable lesson. Standing up for myself wasn't selfish. It was a profound, necessary act of self-preservation and self-love. Boundaries, I learned, weren't walls to keep people out, but crucial lines defining self-worth, protecting one's energy, and fostering healthy, reciprocal relationships. The debt ledger, once a secret symbol of my quiet despair and a painful chronicle of their greed, transformed into a powerful testament to my resilience, a living record of how I courageously reclaimed my life from the wreckage of deceit. I found a deep, abiding peace in knowing I had honored my true self, my authentic voice, not the version of me my family had tried to exploit and diminish. The truth, painful as it was to unearth and expose, had ultimately set me free, allowing me to build a future defined by authenticity, complete financial independence, and genuine, reciprocal relationships rooted in honesty and respect. Has someone in your family ever betrayed your trust in a way that forced you to reevaluate your entire relationship? How did you navigate that difficult terrain? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if this resonated with you, and share with someone who might need to hear that setting boundaries with family is not only okay, but sometimes necessary for everyone's healing. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that even the most painful experiences can lead to unexpected growth when we face them with courage and honesty.